Hello, everyone, and welcome to Drawing Bigfoot on. No, it's not. It is Drawing Bigfoot on Bigfoot Odyssey. I've got my words mixed up there. Hope everyone is doing all right out there tonight. We have got a great show tonight. We've got a great guest, and of course, we've got our great artist, Larry Batson. How you doing, Larry?
I'm happier in a ferret in a prairie dog town.
That's pretty happy. That is pretty happy.
That's real happy.
And we've got a great guest tonight coming from Pennsylvania. It's Dave Groves. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome. I have to give a shout out to Jamie King for giving us, getting us hooked up
Right.
to this. So I appreciate him for doing that. Now, you had a very interesting encounter. You had a face-to-face, so you saw the face anyway of this encounter. And appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us. You were in the Allegheny, I probably said it wrong, Allegheny Forest.
Yeah, Allegheny National Forest.
National Forest.
That's correct.
Take us a little bit through your encounter. Give us an outline, and then when we get to the drawing, we'll get into more details.
Okay.
All right with you?
Yep. This happened in June. It would have been the first or second week of June, 2010, and it was on an ATV trail about 10 miles northeast of Marionville, Pennsylvania. It's in the Allegheny National Forest. They're groomed trails. They're taken care of pretty well. I took a buddy up. He was going to buy one of my ATVs, and he wanted to take it for a run. And that trail's not real technical, but it's long. There's like 80 miles of trails. You're not crossing the same trail every 5 minutes. I can't remember. I have it written down. It's like 550,000 square mile or acres of 800 square miles of densely populated kind of old growth in most of the area forest. There's deer, bear, black bear, white-tailed deer. I'm sure there's cougar there, puma, whatever you want to call them on the eastern side. Just everything. The biggest we have here is the black bear, and I know that question comes up with Bigfoot encounters. But we were riding ATVs that day, and we got up there very early in the morning. It was pouring down rain that day. It was really heavy rain. We were almost going to cancel, but we didn't. And we unloaded, and we were having a great day. The sun came up probably 10, 11. The sun came out of the clouds, and the forest was real muddy, but it wasn't raining for the most part after 10. And that was a lot of fun. You know, if anybody out there rides ATVs, they know the mud and the sun is a lot of fun. But we had done the Allegheny, it's the Marionville Timberline ATV trail. They joined together to make this one big trail. And we started at the northern trailhead and went down through the loop system, and we were headed back north to go back to where the truck and the trailer were parked. And that's when this happened. There's a long section of that part of the trail that's just groomed gravel road, some old logging road, real easy stuff that's boring. And I opened my ATV up. My buddy Paul was behind me, and the trail would go back off to the right with signs, and that's where this incident happened. He was a little bit behind me, and I pulled off as soon as we went back. The trail went back into the forest, and it was like a little field that opened up. And just to describe this area, I quickly pulled over to the left and kind of swung the quad back around. So I was looking back to my right in case Paul went past the trail and missed that turnoff there and was going up the road. And I would assume he wasn't far behind me. We don't separate very often, but when you do, you pull up and wait. And that's exactly what happened. It was like perfect timing. And what happened was I was just getting off the ATV. The ATV was still running, and this happened 12 years ago. So I used to spill this out, but I just got my leg over the handlebars and was getting ready to lean against the right side of my ATV, and I was getting up water out of I have a little thing that I carry water in by my handlebars, and pulled it up to drink, and rock hit the front side of the ATV, and I just kept drinking, and I don't know, I'm guessing it was probably close to 3 rocks is when I realized where are these rocks coming from? I'm parked, and I went to turn because I could see something caught out of the right side of my eye when I was looking back towards Paul, and I caught one coming in. And I went to turn. Now, picture in your peripheral vision, you can like my hands over here, I can see it, but I can't quite see it. But if I left it still, I could see it's coming in. That's exactly what happened. I was turning to see, like, there's a guy, someone's throwing rocks at me. I don't know where these rocks are coming from. And as I was turning my head, I just drove through this area, which is what amazes me. And that area, before I get to that, the area again laid out, it's like a field with 1 to 2 foot tall mountain grass. Went 30 feet over to the tree line to the right. Where I pulled off to the left was a real steep hill that went up. So I'm pulled over, 30 feet up, probably 30 feet of grass. Looking back, same 30 feet of grass, like all the way back to the road where the little gravel road was. And as my eye was coming back around, I don't know if I thought it was a log. I've been asked this many times. I don't know if I would have went past this thing, but I never got to make it. In the peripheral vision, it just sprang up like a target. It was just like, what? And when my eyes got over to it, it was just standing there. It just froze. I froze. I'm like, what in the, I used to bear hunt, and I know we get these questions. I've had millions of them when I've told my encounter. No, it didn't even look, it wasn't, the only thing that looked like a bear was the color of it. I mean, it was very dark black. This thing was big.
And you didn't think about Bigfoot. I mean, before.
No, I wasn't. Oh yeah, I was not into Bigfoot then. Wasn't even thinking about it. Didn't care about the subject. And now since then, that's all I. It just how that happens. But yeah, when I turned to look at, I mean, this thing sprang straight up, and the only thing that did was it moved its right arm. It was on the left side. It moved its right arm across its hip, and for some reason, I don't know why I was looking for its right hand. I'm right-handed, and it's funny. I go back thinking about this. It's funny how we assume things because, I don't even know if this was throwing rocks. I don't know. They were coming from that direction. That's when I turned and caught this thing. And nothing was in its hands that I could see. I never saw the palms of the hands. The hand stayed pointed to itself, but it bent across its waist. And I've thought about this for 12 years. I have no idea why, but then it froze. And it was stayed square at me. And I looked at it like, please don't be looking at me. Don't be looking at me. But this was all within 15 seconds. That's about the vision I got. But I was making my way up as I can remember this. And I got to its head. And I'll never forget the black eyes. The darkness, as black as this thing was. And Larry, when we get to drawing, there's 2 words that stay in my head for 1-word explanations of this thing. It actually was beautiful. It wasn't at the time. And I'll get to that. And it was groomed looking. And I say that because, I've spent time in the woods. I've seen a lot of animals after a rainstorm. I mean, it rained really bad the night before and there was mud. This thing was shiny, like almost like a bluish black. I mean, it was so dark black. And I've thought about it for a long time. To me, it was either the water off the trees it was moving through, the brush, it was oil. I don't know what it was, but it was so shiny black, but the eyes were blacker, if that makes sense. And I don't know if it was the shade, because I never turned sideways when it stepped away, but I don't know if they say they have bridge,
the brow ridge,
yeah, the brow ridge. I don't know if that was shading it.
Yeah, they could have been
deep
set back.
But they were just really intense black. I don't remember another color in the eyes. I do not. I remember the nose. I remember the lips, and I'm sure we'll get into that part. But what happened with the encounter was I froze. I mean, I was just like, what is, and it goes through your head, man, getting ready to get shot. I had a 45 and a camera in my fender bag, and it's an amazing part. And I don't care what anybody says. I will never ask a person, why didn't you take a picture? That's not what I was. First of all, I wasn't afeared for my life. I was like trying to figure out what I was looking at. This thing gave me no fear. It was just not anything I've seen. It wasn't a bear. I was not mistaken this thing. And then I'd say it was 15 to 20 seconds. It started coming into my mind what this thing, what am I looking at here? And I want to tell you, people, I've never seen anybody this big. And when I say big, I mean massive, wide. My hands are outside the screen. This thing, the shoulders on it, I can't guess that. I mean, I've tried to analyze the height by how tall them grass were, and it came up to about its shin. And I'm guessing 7.5 foot tall, 8 foot tall. And I know that's a normal, but that's all the best I could do. I wasn't trying to look at this thing and get estimate sizes. I wasn't into Sasquatch. By the time I started realizing when I was looking at his face, what I'm probably looking at, the fear started setting in. Cause I'm telling you, I was locked on this thing. And it just instantly started stepping backwards. It maybe took 2 or 3 steps into the tree line, and it never turned around. It stayed square on me. And it just kind of opened up the trees. Its hands went back and it was gone. I mean, my eyes went straight onto the trail. My leg went over the thing. the handlebars, and I was skipping sideways up that trail. Like, all I kept thinking about was this thing's behind me or something else while I was locked on. And I want to be honest, the picture that comes to my head, the vision is in Jurassic Park with what were those little bad
Velociraptors?
Yeah, where the guy was focused on the one and the other one come. That's exactly. I mean, that was going through my mind. I don't even remember if that movie was out then, but that when I saw it, I mean, that just boom, that was a perfect thought. Was how I felt then. Was like, what is coming up behind? You know, I was just so freaked out. The fear, the panic, skipping sideways. I'll never forget going. I don't think I've ever had that ATV that fast since. But what happened was the trail then from the 30 feet came up against the wood line, the tree line came up against the trail ahead of me, and that's all I kept picturing was this thing's in the woods chasing me. It's going to knock me off this trail or off this ATV, but it never did, and I never heard anything. The ATV was running. It's not a very loud ATV, so I never heard noise. You know, I've gotten into Sasquatch since. I became a junkie kind of and collector of books and read a lot of stuff, art. No one gave this one the SOP on how Bigfoot's supposed to act from everything else, because I didn't smell anything. If there was noise, it wasn't that extreme loud noise. The lips never open. When we get into drawing it, it did seem like it was like it was about to do something, because the top lip, I could just picture that, the lines right here. But I never heard it. I never heard a noise. The only way I could describe it is the fear wasn't from it. Them rocks, afterthought, if they wanted to hit me, they probably would have. They were pretty accurately thrown. If that was what was throwing them, I never saw it throw one. I saw them coming from that direction. Now, I've asked people when I got into it, started finding out about them. If they're so secretive, why does this thing stand up and give itself what, and who knows? But the best answer I heard was, you might have pulled in where there were young ones or something. And I was like, young ones? I don't know anything about it. But, yeah, now that I know, I could think back and think I'll never know the answer to those questions.
Yeah,
but
there's so many questions, isn't there? Impossibilities.
But where did it come from was the big thing. I drove right through there within 10 to 15 feet on that trail. Was it a tree that I thought was laying there? A log? I wasn't looking for anything, and there's trees laying down and stuff, but had no reason. I just pulled over real quick. What was it doing in there? All those questions come up. I mean, the trail system just opened back up for the season 2 weeks before this. So did it have that forest to it? I don't know. I don't know. I caught it off guard. I can't answer. Honest to God, people think that, okay, you have an encounter, you should know more. I'm dumber now that I've had the encounter. I honestly am, because now I have questions that I can't answer. And I didn't have those questions before.
No.
Like, where are these things? I've seen this thing. I know 99.9% sure what I was looking at now. I can't say 100 because I didn't walk up and hug it or, whatever you want to do. But where are they? How do these things hide if they're this big? So all those questions come in, and it's just an encounter will never...
You'll never get the answers. Yeah, you'll never get the answers. You'll keep searching, though.
And you own it. You own it once it happens. And, I've since been into it and have done talks and stuff. And people have come up and held this stuff in for a long time. And grown men start crying when they can get it. It's amazing to me. And I've talked mine several times. So the emotion is not maybe as intense as some others, but it's still there. I'm actually shaking inside. Just when you talk about it, the whole thing, it just brings it back.
Yeah.
But mine wasn't scary like a wild, scary animal creature. It was just something that I never saw before.
And you were trying to process it.
Yeah, the process, 15 seconds.
To think about being scared maybe or anything else other than what is this thing?
It's amazing, though, to have that because who would have thought? I didn't laugh at people that had these conversations, but I just walked away from them. I would never got into this. Other things maybe, but Bigfoot, I've hunted fish. You know how that saying is. There couldn't be. I've never had a reason to think until now, and then I go back now in my hunting days and wonder what was that I remember, and what, makes you think. It really does.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me. These things are here.
Phil says you go down the rabbit hole.
That's exactly what you do. You don't have a choice, and I didn't ask for it. I was not looking for this thing. I was not searching for this thing. But when it happens, you can't give it back. You just can't. And you owe it to people to tell them. It took me a while to start talking about my story. And then I had some drawings done and stuff. But it did take a while because of the laugh factor and everything. But then you just, who cares? It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, we're past that now. We just talk about it like it's normal.
Yeah.
Here. It's just it's an everyday thing. Everybody that's coming here knows about it. We all want to talk about it. We want to share information if we can or details. And if it just helps one person to come forward, and offload their encounter. You know, it all helps.
It does.
So I'm going to be interested to see what this thing looks like. So
yeah, this will be
get into it, Larry? Do you want to get yourself?
So you had drawings done before?
Yes, I did. I had one.
Was it any good?
It was very good. Of course, you can always go back and change things. I won't get into the detail because I don't want to base anything on that. But the one thing that I mentioned again was groomed. I would change a little bit of that, and we'll get into that part. But otherwise, it was done very well. Yes.
Good.
Oh, the pressure's on.
Pressure's on, Larry. Yeah. Kevin Morrison already knows Sybil Irwin. Yeah.
Oh, is that who did it?
Yeah. She they contacted me for one of the conferences out here in the East Coast and asked if I would allow her, and I said, yeah, I've tried to get this done with several people, but they weren't artists like you all, and they couldn't get the Sasquatch, so we just canceled it. I just had doubts, but I was amazed. I was like, holy wow.
I'll put Larry up a bit bigger there so you can see how he's.
What was the shape of the top of its head?
The top of the head wasn't pointed. It wasn't round. It was I want to go footballish, but more round. You know, like that. It's I don't know how to say
an
something like
oval more.
Yeah, more like an oval. That's a good way of putting it. But not as narrow of an oval.
So wide-ish oval.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, while this was happening, I went through it really quick. But while it was happening, I thought whatever I was looking at was bent over. And I'll tell you why. Because the top part of its head seemed more than what it should have been above its eyes. And the arms were so long. The nose was flat. I mean, I thought it was just bent over, like, you know. But when it stepped back, it never stood up. It was straight up. So it wasn't bent over. A little bit more pointed at the top. Not pointed, but more ovalish, like at the end, kind of the end of a football, but not as narrow, if that makes sense.
I'll get it. Your football there are not like our footballs here.
Right.
Yeah, it's confused. Like it's a soccer ball. A rugby ball would be what your football looks like for us. But anyway, we have these differences.
Is that closer?
That is closer. Yep. That actually, the outside line looks good. Yeah.
And if it doesn't, don't be worried about telling Larry. He wants to get it right. So if you ever think anything's not right, just tell him it's fine.
Yeah, it'll be hard at first until the eyes and the nose and stuff come together and the shoulder. And now I will say I didn't see any ears.
No, good.
It never turned sideways. So I don't know. You know, people say they flat ear. Who knows? I never saw them.
And you say, did you see a brow ridge or not?
I saw the eyes were massive black, and I don't even know how to describe it. My thought was shaded, so I'm assuming there was a brow ridge. It never turned sideways, so I never got to see that bump that they say they have.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top here, move my pencil down. You tell me from your recollection of how far I should go before that gets sunken in before the eyes. Okay.
Okay.
In other words, we're going to pretend there's a brow ridge. We're going to make it very minute.
Right about there. And now up probably halfway. Well, I always said it was probably at that distance, and I would be just guessing, but maybe 2 inches above that was where the hair came down to. But yeah, that's about, I'd say.
So the hair came down this far?
Came down, like, there was space there, enough space to see that it wasn't hair, and I assumed it was black skin, but it was just black, and it wasn't the same as the hair I was looking at, so I assumed it was skin.
Okay.
And that was different above the eyes and around the cheeks, and down here a little bit. There wasn't as much. There was like some hair.
So there could be about a 2 inch space between the brow ridge and the hairline.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
The big circles, the eyes that were just so dark, I don't think were the whole eyes. There were eyes in there, but it's almost like I've
Sounds
heard
like you're
people.
deep set, and
Yeah, that's
you
what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking that some of this is afterthought, but I'm thinking that with the brow ridge that they say they have, I could see that on the face. I couldn't see because it was so black. I mean, this was daylight, but the animal itself was so black. I couldn't see cracks in its skin or any of that, but you could see the lips, and I mean,
Okay. Were the eyes big?
the eyes were pretty big. Yeah, the brown part was really big.
Were they what shape?
They weren't almond and they weren't round. They were, and I say this because I think it was the look on it was kind of stern, but not mean or aggressive, but just like a focused look. So they were probably, I don't know if they were squinted, but I'm assuming. So the eyes were kind of not almond, not round. You know what I mean?
We're going to try.
If you could see my.
Can you see Larry? He's just described using his. Oh, he's done that. See what you think of that.
No, they would be the part that I saw that was black. I would keep that, but make a circle around there, or more of a circle, but not quite a full like round circle. That's probably where the eye part was. The other one on the other side, and then it was just really dark around it. I remember how dark that was.
Okay, so this
thought it'd be interesting shading this. Yeah, they were dark. It was almost like, I hate to say it because they weren't sunglasses, but it's almost like they were big round with, you could tell there were eyes in there, but yeah, that's looking good. Actually,
it is.
Yeah, actually that is. That isn't much of a difference, but wow, that does look great. Huh.
It'll all come together.
Yeah, this is like I said, the one that we had done, we didn't do it live, and it was just trading. So it's really interesting. Oh my.
Yeah, the process, just seeing it happen.
Close.
Yeah, that's close. Yep.
Okay, how do I get it closer?
I would say it would be the left eye, the one on the. I don't know if it's backwards the way I'm looking at the other one.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, bring it up a little bit. Yeah, they were pretty even, I remember.
Yeah, I could see that too. I was. Better. Is it?
Yeah, that's the way you have that one. That's really good.
Okay. Describe the nose to me.
The nose, I remember seeing not much. I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it. There not much like the what do they call this part? The bridge.
Yeah.
But the nose came down and it was wide. It came probably a third of the way across each side of the eye, wide. Maybe a little further. I'd have to see it drawn. But it came down. Let's see.
Tell him when to stop. How far down do you think this nose?
Right there. Oh, I can't see with this hand. Yeah, I would say there. Yeah, and it maybe up just a tad is where it started getting really flat.
And was it squashed down, do you think, or just a big nose?
I think it was squashed. It was more of a flat. Wow.
So it's interesting, isn't it? I'll let Larry speak.
How's that?
That looks pretty good, and that could probably even be a little wider on where it flared open, like I'd say where the nostrils were down, like the outside of the nose. It was over.
That better?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that good?
That is good.
Okay. And the nostrils were large?
I couldn't see up them, but yeah, they were. It was a big nose. I mean, wide, flat.
What about the bulb of the nose here?
It didn't look like there was much of a bulb. It just looked flat. Like it had, I don't even know the right description. Somebody punched it right. You know what I mean? Boxer's nose.
Boxer's nose, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is that getting it? Yeah.
That is getting it. Yep.
Okay, we're going to go down to the top lip from right here.
Right about there. Now the lips I remember the mouth extremely well. It went from one side of its face to the other.
Okay.
I mean, it was very wide, but they were flat lips. They weren't these big lips, or its mouth never opened. And I stared at this thing the whole time. Once I made eyes on it, it never opened, but it was almost like it went, if you look at my mouth, when I do that,
yeah,
these lines came out. I can remember that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But it didn't appear to be a snout to me. It just appeared like it might have been making a noise. My ATV was running, but it wasn't loud enough for me to hear that.
And you didn't think it had like a jutty front teeth, like some can be pronounced kind of top lip.
Yeah, no, the lips seem very flat and pretty even with each other, top and bottom. And again, they actually might have been the lightest thing on it.
Wow, how's that?
Because everything was so
length for the mouth there.
That's good. Yeah, they went really wide. Yep.
Okay, now let's do the side of his face, or hers, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I will say this: I didn't know to look male or female, but people say if it's a male, you'll know. If it's no, the chest on it was immense, but I don't know what I was looking at. I didn't see male appendages. I wasn't even.
Well, that's good. Well,
I mean, depending how much fur hair they've got, it's hard to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and in 15 seconds, it was enough time to get a look, but again, you're just trying to get your head wrapped around it.
Okay, now the side of his face, would you describe it? Was it straight down? Was it?
Well, I keep pointing at the screen. I'm thinking of the head with the way the hair is going on the outside, and when I pull that in, there was hair like around below the eye, to the nose, the cheek, like here.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed, and across here was hair, but really like facial, not real heavy hair.
Mm-hmm.
But it was different looking than the rest, like what I thought was black skin. So,
okay. What did this shape? How did this go?
From the hair or the face itself?
The face.
The face was kind of what I could see, the face was straight down from there, from where you ended it at the top.
Okay.
And I'm in my head thinking of the overall shape, which puffed out a little more. But the
think
face,
about cheeks as well, maybe. Did the cheeks make it seem still make it seem flat like that, or?
Yeah.
Are we close?
We're close. Yep. Now that what you did there, the lip, that's just the top lip, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I'll play a little video in a minute of the different varieties of Sasquatch Larry's drawn.
What about the chin? What did the chin look like?
The chin was hairy. There was hair, like from here where my fingers are on my face down. That's all out. That's about all I got to see of the rest was hair, and it flowed right into the hair on its body.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
Did it have like a square chin, or?
Yeah, I would say not completely square. I mean, I would say underneath it was probably round, but I'm just guessing at that point. My impression was, yeah, it probably was rounded, not completely square, not a square jaw.
Okay, I'm gonna go down.
There's some round in it.
Okay, I'm gonna go down from his lip here, and if you can give me some idea of how long the chin was.
Okay, I saw right to about there, and then the rest was hair. Maybe a little bit up from that, but we'll see once you get that. And again, yeah, it's really freaky because as dark as this thing was so black, Larry, but you could tell it wasn't the same black material, hair, whatever, on parts of its face. You could just tell that, even at 80 feet. And my assumption was that was black skin. I mean, that's all they had. It wasn't hair. It just didn't look like hair.
So the hair was here, correct?
Yeah, under the bottom lip. The lips were pretty
here?
narrow. There's still, like, the lips weren't that thin. That's just the top lip, right?
So no, that's what. The shading will do a lot more.
Yeah, you can see the lip. You could see this, like where the lips touched.
Okay.
Like it was almost pursed. Like.
Okay.
All right.
For some reason, I got the impression that this was bulging out.
Like
it was probably making a noise. Who knows? I don't know what it was doing.
Right.
But
okay. So the top lip was bulging a bit, like it was puffing.
Like,
maybe.
If you look, my face.
Okay. Yeah.
I could definitely distinctly see that part when it did that, and it just froze at that point. And
okay, let's get started here.
Gonna start with the shading.
Everything looked fine.
Looks good. We'll get the hair going. The eyes might need to adjust a little bit, but not. Yeah, once we get the hair, because them black, big, round bulges were hard to tell the eyes inside of it. The hair itself was probably, I estimated, like, it was short and groomed looking, because I kept using that word groomed every time I described this, because it was so muddy and wet, and this thing didn't look like it was in the mud or rolling around.
Right.
I couldn't see below its shins, but it was just like a oily looking, groomed, not brushed back hair look, but groomed. 3 to 5 inches is where the estimated hair. Shorter actually on the head, probably the 3 inches, until we got down further around its neck.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Just the different descriptions, and like you say, some look well groomed, like the hair's just perfect, and then other ones a little bit more,
Oh, we were covered in mud, and to see this, and we've all seen deer and bear, whatever animals in the mud, and they do tend. It depends on if they were laying down or not. Sometimes they'll maze you. I've seen albino deer in the mud that look really clean, but then you see the ones that are just tore up looking, and it's like, this thing wasn't a mess. It wasn't. I've heard descriptions since I got into Bigfoot, and I've heard, and it's so amazing to me, because I'm not doubting anybody after I had my encounter, and to hear the different descriptions, the knotted hair and the different looks. And I actually, once I've came out of this and had time to think, I described it as beautiful. If I wasn't afraid of what the unknown, it was actually a beautiful living creature that it's amazing me that we just don't know where they're at. Or, oh my God, yeah. That's the dark. Filling it in like this is really, yeah.
It's going to start coming alive now.
Oh, man.
I'll show you if you play this little video, and you'll see some of the ones that Larry's drawn.
Wow.
And the differences. This one with blue eyes is incredible.
Yeah. See, that's not exact, but that guy was probably, or person was trying to get the blackness of those eyes across. That's in there again. Black. Wow.
Some of these is Larry's art as well. Everyone knows you can always get a print of these. If you contact Larry, I'm going to put his.
Look at those. See what people are seeing. These black. I'm telling you.
The black.
I don't know what that is. If there's a brow ridge there shading it, or if there's just something about that. It's amazing to me that I'm seeing a lot of that.
I mean, that's kind of human looking. Very human.
Well, I've been asked if I had to choose between a wild animal and a human. I always went closest to human, but I will not say it was human. It was. I have to consider the fact that I had 15, 20 seconds looking at this thing, and it was standing on 2 legs with 2 arms, and I'm sure that swayed my opinion. Yeah. But it didn't look like a bear. It didn't look like any animal. I've never seen a gorilla in the woods. I mean, I don't know what that would look like. I can imagine by seeing them in the zoo, but this didn't look like that. And it didn't look like it was thinking like that.
No.
It was taking me in, and it wasn't acting out of aggression like, you're here and you don't need to be here. It was more like, you're here, I'm here. What are we going to do now? Same as I was like, oh, my God.
We've got someone with us, Larry.
Oh.
Hello. Is this
Did you
Larry
shut that
Baxter?
door quick enough?
You leave it unlocked, anyone will walk in.
How you doing, Mark?
Hi, how are you, Daniela?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Mark, meet Dave.
Hi,
Dave,
Mark.
this is Larry's son.
Great to meet you, Dave.
Hi, how are you?
Sorry I'm late.
Better late than never.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Dave.
How we doing, Dave?
Yeah, we're doing well. Yeah, we're actually doing pretty good. How you did that eye there, where you could tell there's an eye, but yet it's separate?
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Oh, okay.
Everything was just like so black, but you could tell the pieces of the face. I just couldn't see any wrinkle marks or anything like that in the parts that look like skin.
Yeah. Got an image here. Mark Zasky, the one he saw. I mean, he said it was just like a black band across the eyes. It was so dark.
That's the Mark Sasky's?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One of Mark Zasky's. He's seen
wow.
He's seen several.
Yep.
I'm just going to find the other one. Actually, had this is another one of Mark's, and it had twigs and branches in its
Oh
hair.
wow! I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that's a big nose on that one. And this was.
Oh yeah, that's right there. Oh man.
That's the one that's Patty. Larry drew that.
That is
of Patty. Yeah.
Oh my God. So I look so familiar.
Could be.
Yeah.
But I tell you,
it's just interesting seeing these, faces.
How many have you guys done, Daniela? You and Larry?
I don't know. We've done about 10, I think, or somewhere around there, I think. So, yeah, I need to put them all together. I know people keep asking for a calendar or something, but we'll work something out. And
to 12.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love seeing the different varieties of these things. And as I've said before, it's like data collecting in a form where we don't just hear the stories. Now we get to see what these things look like.
Yeah. I didn't hear Dave's story so far, but was this a daytime visual?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. It was probably 4:30, somewhere between 4 and 5, on an ATV trail headed back north to our parked truck and trailer. We were still probably an hour away, but we'd ridden all morning in the dark or in the rain. It was pouring down. We were going to cancel the trip in the morning because it was raining so hard, but it was supposed to clear up, and it did about 10 a.m. So we played in the mud, had a good time, and headed north. This encounter happened with me that it started with a rock throwing when I was parked, and I turned and caught this thing standing up, and we stared for like 15 seconds, and it stepped backwards without taking its eyes off me, and just kind of cleared the trees, and my leg was over the handlebar, and I was skipping sideways going, and it wasn't even from, like I described earlier, it wasn't even from the encounter. It was just from the unknown. It's kind of a weird feeling that I hate to compare this, but I was in the military and in the Navy and worked with some people that were there's some intense situations, and that fear you're trained for, you don't want it to happen, but you're trained for it and you think you're prepared. Nobody's trained for this. There was no way to understand that. I wasn't in a Bigfoot. I didn't even think about it then. I of course knew about the Patterson-Gimlin film. I was 7 years old when that happened, and but I don't even know what I was thinking when I was a kid. I didn't follow it. And this happens, and it's just and I compare it because I've bear hunted. I've spent time in the woods. I've hunted, and I didn't say this part. I don't hunt today, and I was an avid hunter, and it's not because I'm afraid of the woods. I don't know what it is. I have my 2010 hunting license, and I didn't use them, and that's the year I had my encounter, and I never went back into the woods with a rifle. Now I do carry a handgun, and I do a lot of researching now. I used to. I've backed down over the years, but I still love to camp, hike, ATVs, spend a lot of time in the woods, but I won't go in alone. And this wasn't even a fearful. I just know now something that shouldn't be here and we can't figure out does exist. And who knows what they're capable? I don't know. I know mine was friendly, not friendly. It wasn't a bad one, but it still scared the crap out of me. I mean, that fear of the strength, the massive size of these things. People can repeat this over and over and can't get that. I can't get that across enough. I think the height's probably the hardest thing to judge when it's not standing against anything, because you're going by the width too, and the width is amazingly wide. The shoulders on this thing were so big. It's like the head just came out of it, you know, like, and that's again why I thought it was leaning over, because of the head part and the arms. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Stepped back into the trees after about 15, 20 seconds of just staring at it and hoping it didn't see me. But you know that it was locked right on me. I was locked right on it, and I had a gun in my cell phone in my fender bag, and it never occurred to me. I didn't feel threatened. But, you know, it's weird because now it's after the fact. It's 12 years later. I go back and think, what would it have done if I'd have reached for that fender bag? Did it know? Would it have thought? I mean, at 80 to 90 feet, that thing would have been on me before I could have done anything if I wanted to anyhow. Just the massive size of it. I could tell this thing wasn't just going to walk slow. But when it did leave, it stepped backwards into the forest and just kind of trees parted. And that's all the last I saw of it. And I took off. But it never took its eyes off me, and I never got to see it sideways, which I go back and think about. I wish I got to see the girth of this thing, or maybe I don't know if I wanted to, because the front was wide enough. It was amazingly wide. But I never smelled anything. None of that stuff. Now that I hear the stories, I don't know. The fear just.
Yeah, Kerry went for his gun, I think, or put his hand in that direction. This thing screamed at him, and that's what stopped him from doing anything else. I mean, it could have attacked him, but it didn't.
Yeah.
You know, with its
that scream I've heard about. I've not ever even researched it. I've not heard that in the woods, and we've been in some what we thought were active areas. I can't imagine that. Just the way people describe that's enough to make you just, I think, lose it. The loudness of that.
I've heard interviews, Dave, where people say they're focused on the one in front of them, and you have no idea. And Larry said this too. Like, what's flanking you? There's a reason they're not.
You missed that part. I was going back
out.
To Jurassic Park, the movie. That's exactly that feeling was like. That's the part that the fear overcame me. I think I was just locked in too much, trying to figure out what the heck am I looking at? Oh my God! And then it started stepping backwards. And I do got to say, I think now it stepped backwards, because I got about a half mile further up the trail, and there was a big mud hole up there, and there were some other ATVers. So I turned around and was facing back in the woods, thinking, "Oh crap! I got to go back for Paul." My buddy was just right behind me, not too far. And he came right up behind me, so he wasn't too far anyhow. And I got the feeling maybe it heard him coming. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it stepped backwards into the woods, and I'm thankful it did. And Paul and I didn't talk about this for years until somebody wanted to put the encounter in a book, and I had to remember the exact week and stuff. And I knew it was the beginning of June, but couldn't. Coffee. Thanks, son. I love you. I'm sorry. She's feeling.
So do you think, if you're thinking about now, do you think those rocks were coming from that direction?
Yeah.
Or could it have been another one throwing?
You know, I've both. That instant when it would happen, I thought it was this whatever, because that's the only thing I saw. And later on, I would question when I started jumping into the subject a lot and wanting to go back up and do research, but I didn't want to go up by myself, and I didn't want to chase whatever's out of there, you know, being stupid. And I wanted to learn. So a person contacted me in 20 miles west. Yeah, it would be west of where this incident happened. He has an active area. So we started doing research, and he was teaching me some things and just being a little smarter in the woods, you know, learning that gut feeling. If you're not comfortable, back out, because, you know, you just got to, but all that stuff. And he, some of them questions, I'm like, well, they're supposed to be so not wanting to be found. Why did this thing? And that's the answers that came out. Or it could have been younger ones. Maybe they threw rocks. I don't know, but it would make perfect sense to me now. That's the only answer I'm happy with, actually. Well, not happy with, but looking back and thinking of that situation, that it would make sense that if there were young ones in there, it gave itself up and said, "Look at me." But it didn't act aggressive if there were young. I mean, I can't even explain that part of it, you know. I hear all these other stories of aggressive. This wasn't aggressive. Just the rocks coming in were aggressive. And they were hitting the same part of my ATV, to be honest. So I think if it wanted me, it would have hit me, knocked me off that ATV. And they weren't big rocks either. They were just about the size of my fist, a little smaller.
So this one is, I mean, you hear them, don't you, throw rocks? This is obviously either used to doing that or it's something that they do. I mean, why did they do it? Is it a trait that they have? Do they use it to grab attention of stuff they want to kill, or
Yeah, we could probably guess on that, huh? All day long. You just wonder. I would think personally, if they live in the woods, hey, that's defense. That's their weapons. That's whatever it is.
It's also a hunting tool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The hunting for the weapon. I will say this: if it was the same one that threw those rocks, they were accurately thrown. There were 3 of them. I'm thinking 3 before I turned around and caught the 4th one or whatever coming out, 3rd or 4th one coming from the right side. And they were hitting the right front tire wheel well of my ATV. And I've joked about this, so I'll say it. I got some friends probably watching this, and we from Pittsburgh, our Pittsburgh Pirates have always had a bad pitching staff. So I've always made a joke about that. Said we needed whatever this was, pitch it on the Pirates, because if he was that capable of hitting or throwing it from that distance, because I walked it off later when I would back up in there, it was 30 long steps. So I'm guessing anywhere between 70 and 90 feet. That's pretty darn accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But could something else have been throwing them? Yeah, absolutely. I never saw it throw anything. I just, as soon as it stood up and my eyes contacted, that's the first thing I did was looked in its right hand, thinking, why right? I don't know, but I'm right-handed, so I think I was assuming. And that's when its right hand moved and crossed its, body. But yeah, it makes you wonder if there were other ones, little ones. Oh my God.
How we doing?
We're doing really well.
Oh, good.
Those eyes are. That's the point I was trying to get across. Big black holes in there.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, they don't want to be seen, but they do step out in front of people. They do, make noises and attract people.
Yeah, and are they attracting them, or are they just attracting? Like, you hear this thing, a rock hits on the right side of you, so people would look over to the right. Well, you should look to the left, because that's probably what they're trying to do, is drag your attention away from them or something, Like, actually, if this wouldn't have hit my ATV, or even when it first did, a couple of the rocks, I was looking more towards the left where the rocks were hitting. You know what I mean? It's only because I was looking back for my buddy Paul, and as I was turning, the one came flying. I could see it coming from the right side, and that's when I spun my head back and it stood up. But yeah, it's kind of makes you wonder: are they misleading you?
That's really smart. That's really smart. Thinking about that, if you're out hunting, you think you hear a knock or something, maybe look the opposite direction. You hear the sound, because maybe there's opportunity there.
I've read that from some people that I really trust out in the field, and actually, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would do. You think about anybody you see in the old in movies and stuff, and they throw the rock, in one direction, and then the people look that way, and then they go the other way, and yeah, that makes sense.
This thing could have had, I often think this. People, rarely have more than one encounter. I know there is people who have seen multiple encounters, but how many people does Sasquatch see compared to people seeing Sasquatch? And,
well, I mean,
what is their thought on the reactions that they have from humans is how they're going to act with the next one until they get a bad reaction.
They do a drawing every night, Daniela.
Yeah, I bet they do.
Wonder what their podcast is called. It's funny because after this happened, I stayed quiet. I was just thinking so much about it for a year or so, and then my fiance then had found out. I talked to her, and then a buddy said there's this Sasquatch seminar. It was called a seminar then, not a conference, at Cabela's in West Virginia, and that's close enough to home. I was like, really? People get together, So I had to go over, and that's when I met some people, and Steve Calls, actually, if anybody's familiar with Steve, he was speaking, and somebody heard me in the conference room where Dr. Jeff Meldrum was there, Doug Waller, who from Ohio, and a guy, Brian, and his wife walked in, and we just hit it off as friends. And they heard I was telling them about my encounter, because I'd never told anybody publicly about this, and I was going there more to listen. And so another couple overheard me, and when we went down to the lower floor to sit in the seats and listen to the speakers, Steve was speaking, And he opened up with, who here believes in Sasquatch? And of course, everybody raises their hand. And he said, who here knows they exist? And the couple that heard me talking were sitting behind me and poked me in the ribs and my arm. I was just going to sit there. And Steve looked right down and said, how do you know? And it came out. And I thank him to this day, every day, every time I talk to him or see him, because I don't know how long I would have held that in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The kind of crap that people go
It's
through.
always about the opportunity, and the timing is never coincidental. How did you feel when you finally said it?
Totally, it was such an emotional wreck. I really was.
Yeah.
I felt like I had just went through, I don't even know how to describe it. My brain was dead. My body was excited. It was just like a rush.
Yeah.
And then it was easier to talk about in the right crowds after that. And that's why I always thank Steve. I said, because people need to hear these stories. Here's a person that I wouldn't have believed Sasquatch. Hunted all my life. I'm 61. I hunted up until I was 50. That's when my encounter happened. Haven't hunted since, but I still spend a lot of time in the woods. I would have never thought to look at stuff that, or to think that these things exist. I mean, why? We'd be seeing them, right? Well, yeah. I'm 99.9%. I'll say I'm 100. I'm trying to be honest, but I know what I saw. They exist, but where are they? And why don't I just don't get this? I mean, they're so smart. But getting back to that, a buddy that I see when this happened, it's an ATV trail, and you have to have a registered ATV, which means it has to meet certain qualifications. You get a sticker and all that stuff, and it's hard to find somebody that is into Bigfoot that had a not an outlaw ATV. So at the time it was, because I wasn't in the community that much, so the limited people that I know. So my buddy kept going in, and he knows me. He knows I'm not telling a story, but he still was. He didn't have a reason to believe it except for what I was telling him. And his questions were always, well, why aren't we seeing them in the woods here? We're in the woods. So we parked in this one little hollow once. It's like a real narrow. It's literally the width of our ATV, and the hills went up to the side, and then there's bushes out in front of us. And I got off my ATV and walked 10 feet into the woods, and I said, can you see me in here? He's like, no. And I said, that's pretty amazing. Now imagine something that's living in here that don't want you to see them, that can be quiet, that's not going to run like a deer. They're not standing maybe that close, but people say, well, we've been in every inch of those woods. I guarantee you there's areas in woods that we've all been in that a footprint has not been in a lot of those areas. We might have saw into those areas, but has actually walked down through them. We can't have covered everything. And man, there's places that I've used to hunt, and I finally get down in now behind that brush, and it's like, wow, that's a different world back here. You think you're looking into it, but you're not till you step into it. So I could see how these things, they have to be so intelligent though to not be found. Like, I don't know. I'm just so blown away. I have more questions than I ever did, but I'm dumber since I had my encounter to the subject, because I had no questions.
Larry always says, the more you get into it, the more questions you have than answers.
And it's hard to answer them too. I mean, there's no expert out there. Nobody owns one. Nobody has them in their, you can hear people talk about them, but it's an amazing subject.
Maybe it's just something, half the time people are just walking past these things and not even, because they're not looking around them. They're just looking forward. And
forward, not up, not sideways, not behind them. I mean, now when I go into woods, I'm doing 360s, stopping, listening. I mean, it's a totally different experience in the woods now.
Yeah, and go into any deep woods and not feel like you're being watched.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been in a deep woods where I didn't have that feeling.
Yeah, that is an awesome feeling too. I mean, I've never had that in my gut and put that together until after this encounter. And when that guy asked me to help him research an area outside of this town called Oil City, Franklin, it was between the two, which is 20 miles, 30 miles west of my encounter. Same, it's not in the Allegheny National Forest, but it's the same woods together. It's all wood. And we used to, I forget where we were going with this. I'm sitting here rambling, guys. I'm sorry. I got going so much on this story that I'm just watching him do this.
The feeling of being watched out there.
Yeah, in this woods, he went in this active area. He took me in this active area, and he's claimed some encounters, and I really connected with that gut feeling in there. It was a very overpowering feeling that you are not being watched, you're being observed. And there's I was going up there every other weekend for about 2 years, and because it was 100 miles away from me, so it was about every other weekend. And it was probably 2 times that I went up there, 3 times it felt empty, felt like nothing. But every other time it was a bizarre. I call it Jurassic Park because he's done a lot of research up there, so he knows something's going on. He's had encounters, and it's a bizarre feeling. It's just overpowering. But I got to say, during this encounter, I didn't feel that before this happened. I just think it was a happenstance. I come flying into that area, stopped really quick, got off the ATV to wait for my buddy, and these things were probably crossing or this. Wow.
Yeah, and you think years of hunting and with your military background, you've spent time out in the world. Those are my favorite stories, Daniela, when I hear from hunters and military people because they're trained in observation.
I always bring that up too because of the observation piece. You know, when you first start explaining your story and it gets out there in the public, you get questions, and I get them. Like, you know, like I understand why they're asking. You know, you sure it wasn't a bear? Or they try to get. Yeah, there's probably a lot of that, but I had 15, 20 seconds with this, and I think I did a pretty good. Observed it pretty good in that amount of time. That seems like a long period of time, but when you don't know what you're looking at, you know, to have another 15 or 20 seconds with this, knowing what I'd be looking for would be interesting. I think if it happened the same way, I'd be looking at every hair on it. You know, I was just trying to figure out what I was looking at. But you do observe, you do see things. You're looking for weapons. You're looking for any kind of traits that you can use to your own advantage.
Yeah, like you said, you looked right to his right hand because you knew something got thrown.
And that's funny to me.
And as a righty, you went, let me check his right hand because.
Yeah, well, why right though? Just because I'm right handed? I always think about that. Like, what if he was thrown from? But I did see his left arm; it stayed straight down, and I didn't see anything in it. But I was more concerned with the right hand for some reason.
That's good. That's threat assessment.
How's it looking?
It's looking really good. The nose, a little bit. I'm pointing again at the screen. Where the nostrils would be out to the sides, there was probably a little bit more meat down there. Just a little bit more.
Down here?
Yes, out to the sides.
Oh,
well, the whole thing really, but.
More bulbous?
Not bulbous, just it wasn't as flat and stopped. There was more underneath of it.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, like the nostrils probably. And when I was telling the story earlier, to me, when I first looked at it, I thought it was kind of leaning forward. Just because the way the head looked and the arms were long.
Could you see up the nostrils, or were you just seeing the roof?
Just seeing pretty much the roof. And
gotcha.
The whole thing was so black. This creature was so black. But I could tell parts of it weren't hair. What I was looking at wasn't the same as in some parts of its body, and I assumed it was black skin.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's all. I don't know what else it would have been, but it wasn't sticking out like hairs. You could see the hairs. The hairs were long enough. They were sparse along the lips and under here, but it got hairier. And I've heard other descriptions. I don't know that I can recall, but I didn't back then seeing any skin on its body. Like some people say they saw the body through the hair. I don't recall that. This thing had thick hair. It wasn't long, but it was. Or maybe the skin was so dark that it looked like hair. I don't know, but.
Yeah. Like you say, you're not taking everything in, are you?
No, and everybody says, I wish I could have that encounter, and I'm like, you don't. You own it once you have it, and you can't give it back, and then you're always going to want that second one the same way, because now I want to observe this thing, and I don't care. I've been out a lot. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. Although I will say, my buddy and I, in that area that we talked, I do have a picture of one that I think is a white Sasquatch, and I'll send that to you on the side. And it'll go back to these dark eyes. This thing's white up on this hillside looking down at us. And these big, I sent it to a person in the UK, actually does some photography stuff. And he sent it back, looked into the eyes, make sure it wasn't shades. He could tell these aren't shades. And it was just that darkness. And I was like, oh my God, that's the same thing I saw in a dark one. But I never saw that thing move that day. So I don't call that an encounter. It's just, you see the picture, you'll see what I'm saying. It's bizarre. We had a reason to look up there and take pictures up there that day. And I don't probably get into that story, but yeah, it's interesting.
Let's go back again to them being, these elusive creatures. I don't believe that, like, the tiptoeing around the forest all the time, the woods. I can't imagine them being like that in the natural environment. But for some reason, they must be able to sense when there's humans about. and then they would slip into, you know.
Makes you wonder, don't it? I mean, I always wonder about the watcher theory. Do they have something? For an example, where that white one that I thought was a white one, that hillside, we always heard whistling up there when we get out. It's where we park our car off this dirt road, walk down into the hollow, and we're surrounded by mountains on both sides, hills. They're not so much mountains. Mm-hmm. And Doug says he always hears whistling, and I've heard it too when we walk in there, but we can never see anything up there. And then we had a reason to take those pictures, but he always explained that to me, and I thought that makes perfect sense. If that's where humans would walk in there to the trout streams and stuff, you're not allowed to hunt in there, but that's an access, and we're typically lazy. If they've studied us, we're not taking the hills, we're not taking the hard routes a lot of times.
But even on your encounter, Dave, think about, you guys were on noisy, noisy for ATVs.
Yeah, they weren't super loud, but yeah, they were loud, and if they have those senses, they heard us coming. I don't know. I swing off that flat logging road back into the woods pretty quick and turned off, kind of turned in and partially around to watch for Paul really fast. So I don't know where they go in between the two. When I did more research afterwards of that area, I did find two streams came together right there. So there's water, there's everything they need right there. But I don't know, going back to the elusive part, I don't believe they tiptoe around either. There's so much of these big woods that humans don't go into. And when we do, they know we're coming. We're so clumsy.
Yeah, they must do. I think they are clever and intelligent. But I think
they have to be.
I think it's because we don't sneak in quietly. People are generally going for a purpose, aren't they? To hike or to hunt or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they must hear vehicles, I would imagine. And smell vehicles, fuel, stuff like that. So there's lots of clues that we kind of bring to the woods or stuff, wherever you're going. But yeah, it's like they make a choice.
And we're not new to them, I don't think.
No,
they're new to us, but they haven't just showed up. They've been here. They've had to have been here for a long time. They've been watching us forever. And, now you hear more and more encounters. Is it because more people are comfortable telling about their encounters, or are they getting closer to us more? Who knows? That's another question that I have
like you said, Dave, it's important for people to hear it, but it's also important for people to get it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows how many people we've talked to people, and I've been listening to these stories for a very short amount of time, but the people that have sat on 20-year-old stories, it's incredible, and it seems like therapy for them, and that's why I love this show that Danielle is doing, and Larry sharing his gifts, is that they get it out there, they get to share it, put it out there, and then it's like therapy.
You have to wonder as well if they are part human or intelligent, they have a language, they have a culture, what all that sort of stuff. We evolve, we there's a generational change all the time.
Right.
In humans, and I wonder if there's a generational change in their attitudes or their behavior as the years go on, for whatever reason, as man is coming more into woods and machinery and stuff like that. You wonder if there's something going on there. That's why they're more approachable, not approachable, but maybe that's why they want to show themselves to people more. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about, and we all know the different areas that this subject takes you in, and I'm not here to speak about one or the other, and that's not what your show's about, I don't think either, but my mind has opened up so much to a lot of the other theories, because there was a second that same day that I didn't believe in these creatures, and I wasn't even thinking about them, and then the very next second I don't have a choice. And how many other things, you know what I mean? If this thing's out in the woods and no one else has seen it, and it's not just by itself, there's got to be a breeding population with as many sightings, and we don't see them as often, and they're not just stupid animals running across highways out in front of people. I think we're their entertainment, to be honest. But I am a firm, not firm, I guess. I still open my mind a lot to a lot of things, but the more I've gotten into it, the more I wonder if. I know we think of them in terms of our human. That's the only way we can relate to things. But think about us, like, and it actually, Steve Call's the one that called on me at that conference the one time that got me to start talking. was explaining this, and I was dialed right in on it because I believe it too. You know, like humans we have our areas, right? We have our home area where we take care of our babies in our house, and we're going to protect it to the death. Somebody comes in this house that's not invited, or, you know, there's a threat. You go outside of that, we have our travel areas, the post office, the store. We're more social there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Think about them. You know, my thought is maybe their nesting areas and stuff are back. And I say this because the area that we were researching, there's caves a mile further back. And I told Doug, I don't want nothing to do with that. He wanted to go back there and look. And because of my belief and my theory is we might get too close. That's might be where we see the other side of these things. And I don't want nothing to do with that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to prove these things to anybody. I just want to see one again. But you know, then outside those areas where we're having encounters might be their post offices, you know, not post, but you know what I'm saying, where they're more comfortable traveling or not defending to the death. I don't know, but it would make perfect sense to me because of all the random different types of encounters people have. And some of them don't seem to have much difference. They weren't threatening the creature itself, but maybe they were in the wrong area, in their nursing area or something, you know. Any creature would come at you. We would. The nicest person in the world would fight back to some degree if somebody came into their home threatening. I mean, so we used that approach as I started researching. You know, we're out in the woods sneaking around in camouflage and stuff, and then it occurred to me, they're watching us. Don't it look a little suspicious running around their house in camouflage? Let's just start wearing jeans. Just start being normal. And him and I started talking, not loud because we don't want to start kicking deer and bear out of there. But, you know, not hiding. We weren't hiding anymore. We just started walking and talking and having fun and trying to be happy kind of things. And just two guys walking in the woods. And weird stuff happens. I can't say I had another encounter, but I will say that, yeah, you just sense that they're right there. You can't help it. That feeling is in you.
I have always said that if you're going to go lurking through the woods, go buy yourself the most colorful, beautiful Hawaiian shirt you can find. And do not look like a hunter.
Yeah.
Because they don't like them. They don't like them.
I wouldn't want someone sneaking around in camo in my house. I mean, or trying to blend into the color of my walls, you know. I don't know, whatever.
You're not going to hide from them.
You can't hide from them. You can't hide from them.
Okay, how we doing?
We're doing really good. I'm watching this going along here. That's really, really good. The lips have a little bit more meat to them. Like I could see the upper and lower lip, but not real wide. They were narrow, but not. Yeah, a little meat. Like, probably the upper and lower one were as thick as the black of the bottom of the nose to the top of the hood. That little. I don't know what that would be at your end, half an inch. I'm just saying on your diagram. See what I'm seeing there in the lip. That would be one of the lips.
Okay. So that could be the top lip. Put something under it, or
yeah, you might want to. That might be the bottom one. Now that I'm looking at it, the lip started a little bit higher. So if you put the top one above it, that probably covered that area. There wasn't a ton of space between the nose.
Dave, what region are you in?
I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and
Gotcha.
This encounter happened in Northwestern Pennsylvania, the Allegheny National Forest.
Oh wow, it's a big
Come to find out after my encounter, there's a lot of weird stuff up there. There's people that go in and research that come from a lot of states, but they don't talk about it. I done met one out west at a conference, an invite conference I was invited to in Oregon, and was telling my encounter, and a guy comes up to me and he's like, "Do you say the Allegheny National Forest?" And he's from like down in Florida or something. He said he has a team that comes up, and they come up once a year, sometimes twice a year, and they do a lot of research up there, but we didn't talk about any details of it. But it amazed me that these are stories. They're not talking about it. It's people that know what's going on there. The locals. There's one little bar down the road where we sometimes camp. Just put our tents up in the woods, kind of camping, and we'll go down for, come off the mountain and go down, maybe have a sandwich or something on a day. And he has a little Bigfoot statue behind his bar, and he won't talk about it. One person asked him, and he said the locals won't talk to you visitors, too many people come up here causing trouble. And just the answer was kind of like, oh, okay, we know why we're up there. I mean, that's why we're up there. I mean, and that area is probably another 15 miles from where this encounter happened. That would have been in the northern part of the Allegheny National Forest. We've been doing a lot of research up there.
Yeah,
really beautiful country.
You think about it again.
Yeah. As many times I've been in there, I never saw that it's just a tiny little statue. It sits behind the bar down low, and someone caught it and asked him a question, and
Like,
he's
nope.
pretty quiet about it.
That's great. I love that.
Two-Way says Larry is a hell of a great artist. He is a great artist.
Yeah, it's bringing it together. I mean, this is really difficult at the beginning. Shape of the head. I mean, I could look at the outside of the face or the hair, you know, that whole thing. But when you're starting to piece that together, wow.
And when
Brooklyn
the hair
represents.
comes, Larry's not just an artist. He's an amazing wildlife educator. He's been doing it for over 40 years. And he also has Parkinson's. And this is great therapy for Larry doing this. This is a challenge for him, and he pulls it off every single time. But, you know, work's got harder for Larry. COVID spoiled a lot of what he was doing, working in schools, bringing creatures in to educate people. And so I'm going to put a link. I'll put a link up actually, or not a link, but I'll put his email address in the chat. Anyone wants to donate to the wildlife that he's still got, need feeding, need food and all that sort of stuff. Even if it's just a couple of dollars, anything will be really appreciated to help Larry do what he does, keep doing what he does. And you know, I donate a little bit every week, every time Larry's on. And any of these prints, you know, you can have a digital print, get in touch with Larry, and any of these can be sent to you. You can make anything you want from it, a poster, a mug, you know, shower curtain. I don't know. People like these sort of stuff. You don't know what t-shirt, even socks, whatever, you know. But I'll put the email address. I'll put it up now, actually. If you go to PayPal and you put that email address in, and if you want to donate, I'm sure Larry would really appreciate that.
Every cent feeds an animal.
Yeah, I mean, how much does the Elizabeth? How much does Elizabeth the baboon? How much does that cost to feed?
You'd be
Elizabeth?
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spend about $180 to $200 every 3 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
At the grocery, you know.
Tigers are
yeah,
many $100s a week just for the amount of protein they eat.
Yeah.
And also, did you share the mugs that you guys are doing now?
Oh, well.
Yeah, you did send me it last week.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I would hate to even show them because you're gonna keep them busy for a couple months. These mugs are incredible.
We're behind already.
Yeah.
Pretty sure you sent me. This is one of them, I think.
I got on my Christmas tree. I got a Sasquatch ornament that. Oh my god! Look at that. Imagine having your beverage out of that.
Yeah, these are amazing. I'm going to put a link up to Larry's Facebook page as well. If you want to see any of the stuff, you know, there's lots of ceramic stuff, ornaments, Bigfoot stuff, beautiful stuff.
His wife Cheryl's an incredible potter and ceramic artist, and Larry's been lending his talents to that as well. It's amazing.
Yes. So I will put Larry's Facebook link up in the chat, and go and check out the stuff he does. All right. Oh, that is going together now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know why the look of that, and some people might be looking at it like it's a chimp. It's not the point. It just seemed like its upper lip was like it was getting ready to, you know, like filling up with air. It didn't have a snout. I could promise you that. So that look is pretty accurate. But it's just to explain, it wasn't a chimp look.
The muzzle kind of.
Yeah, it wasn't like a muzzle. I had the ATV running, so I never heard a squeal or a whistle, and its lips never opened. But it just seemed like it was puffing up like.
That's something. Larry, does Lizzie do that? Does she ever?
Yeah.
She puts air in her top lip.
Mm-hmm.
Does she make a noise?
Oh yeah.
See, I wonder if my ATV wasn't running, if I'd have heard that. It wasn't one of them loud, beastly things that a lot of people describe, but just something lighter. There could have been some noise there that I missed. I don't know. You know, you always wonder to go back in time, but that's what it is.
My friend Bob Jackson, the Yellowstone Park Ranger who had a sighting, told me that the sounds that they would hear come out of the mountain sounded like 1,000 elk going to their death.
Yeah, as much as I've been out now since this encounter, looking around in supposedly pretty active areas, I've not heard that scream, that yell, and I'm thankful I haven't. That would probably change. Well, I can't say it would change. I'd have to consider the source. It's a huge creature. It's going to make a loud noise, but that's got to be horrifying.
Yeah, the elk sound alone is kind of disturbing, right?
Yeah.
That kind of bleat.
Yeah, that's wow.
Can't imagine.
It's looking similar to Miguel's, actually, just a little bit. Let's see if I can find it. Some just have a similar look to me, you know, it's like some sort of pattern, although they're all different. I'm just going to see if I can find it.
Something about the eyes in this one.
The eyes is the thing that stood out. As dark as this was, the hair and the skin, the eyes were blacker. And I don't know why. I don't know if there's a brow ridge over it, but it had caused shading. It just looked like two big black sockets. But you could see there were eyes in there. I don't even know how I could tell because I don't recall seeing different colors, but
yeah,
I could not. I would never be able to describe if the internal part of the eyes were almond like us or round, but that whole look was big, round, black.
Yeah,
kind of makes me think of this a little bit, just the way the mouth is. I don't know.
Looks like it's mad. I don't know the right. Like it's frustrated. I don't know the right word. The one I didn't get. My impression wasn't this thing was getting ready to attack me. I don't know why, but I didn't have that reach for the gun. I didn't even consider it.
Stoic.
Yeah, just it had that look like it was really checking me out and taking it in, not like getting ready to be defensive.
Yeah, gotcha.
The other thing is, you know, because I know, you know, I just like to try and break things down, and it's our perception again, isn't it, of what they think they were doing. So like you were away from your vehicle, so why would it bring its young towards or anywhere near, if that's what it was doing, if it was protecting its young? I mean, they must see these things and can get out of the way. I always think it's more like a hiker might walk into an area rather than you coming to an area where there's a vehicle and it might know. And for me, it's just like going, okay, it's not the kids. If it's not because of the, you know, what else? What else could it have been? What else was it wanting? Why did it even grab your attention?
Well, and in my case, it didn't come to my. I came into that area so quick, pulled off to the left, kind of turned back towards the right, and was getting off my ATV in a matter of seconds. So I was leaning against my ATV by the time I realized when I caught that rock coming in. And then I started turning. I never walked away from the ATV. I was still leaning against it. It was running. Paul should have been there any time, and just was waiting to make sure he didn't pass by and miss that trail. So my thought is, afterthought, of course, that I just pulled in there really quick and alarmed these things. And again, I drove right through where this thing was standing, within 10 or 15 feet. And was it there? Did I think it was a tree? I mean, I don't know. It was the grasses. I call them mountain grasses. It's kind of like that brown green, kind of thick grass, but they weren't any higher than 2 feet in spots. And if it was crouched down there, it could have been looking like a log. I don't know. I don't recall what I saw before I saw it.
There's a fella that he's a survivalist that went into the forest in New Jersey and swamp, and I can't think what it's called. But basically what he'd do is he would walk to the edge of the swamp, completely take off all of his clothes and walk into the swamp, and he would survive off the land for a year. So he wanted to try something. So he went, after he got back from this little excursion, he went to a party, and he wanted to prove a point that even in this person's home with all these people in there, that he could hide right out in the open. So basically all he did was he laid a lamp down behind the couch. He took the shade and put it over his head, and he stood there most of the evening, and nobody noticed it.
That was good. That was going to be my question, was did he just put the lampshade on his head?
Yeah, that's what he did. And nobody noticed him because they weren't expecting to see a person with a lampshade on their head.
Yeah. And they were stone sober.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well,
I mean, the other thing
that's
is
true.
you could have traveled, got really close to it, and when you parked up it through those rocks to go, hey, you nearly got me there.
It's possible. I'll never know the answer to that.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah.
questions that go through and through, but again, those are questions I never had before this. All of a sudden they just overtake you, and that's the one that will always stick with me. Why, if they're so elusive, after I find out that these things are supposedly so elusive, if it would have just stayed where it was, I probably would have never saw it. I was looking for my buddy Paul. He was going to be there probably within 15 seconds. We'd have went on our way, or maybe stood there and drank a water. I don't know, but a lot of things you never find the answer to.
Yeah.
Like, I question what would have happened if it would have stayed there longer than 15 seconds. Because I was starting to snap out of what I was locked onto, and that's when the fear, you mentioned it earlier about being locked on, and that's where the fear came in. While I was coming out of it, I was locked onto this thing so intensely. When I was skipping up that trail, when I started coming out of it and it stepped backwards, it's alive now, and I'm watching it alive, and what the hell was coming up behind me while I was locked on? And is this thing running beside me going to take me off my ATV out of the woods? And but the poor thing, I'm going to call it, it didn't do anything to scare me. Just it was there, and they're not supposed to be here. That we think,
Yeah.
The unexplained. I don't know, but that overwhelming fear, and I've been through some things, previous experiences. It's not the same fear. This is, you can't get trained. You can't be trained for this.
Yeah, it's always interesting, Dave, to hear the stories from people that aren't out there with any. People have some kind of involvement in Bigfoot or all that, and they're going out and they're squatch hunting and going out to try to experience it. But somebody that goes out there with no preconceived idea that they're even going to run into something of this nature, and then they do. Those are the experiences that are really incredible, especially when somebody that has the experience as you do. Hunters and people in the military, that they have an ability to look at something and take a snapshot and try to address as many things as they can in one look.
What do you think?
It's looking really good. I would still say, for some reason, that upper puff of the mouth is more looking like a snout to me. I don't know why. I think the lip might have been thicker on top still, a little bit more. It wasn't like I could see the lip. I could actually see the thickness of it, but they weren't broad.
Oh, gotcha.
They were I call them thin. They were thin lips, but wide. And I guess if we fill in with the hair and stuff in the middle, like facial hair through here, that'll fill in, so that won't look as puffy. But
did it have not mustache, but
yeah, it did. It had hair. From what I recall, the hair was around here, kind of a little bit under its lip, went all into the, then it was really hairy over here. But it was like this part of it wasn't, it was different. It was black skin, I think. It wasn't hair. It just didn't look the same as the rest of its body.
In the diving mask area.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That
I'm going to do the
sort
hair
of
on the chin
coming
right
into
now.
here.
So show me again the hair on the chin.
The hair, but pretty much, come up right below. Well, you don't know. Right below the mouth, not far, and then it just kind of, all this was filled in
with hair.
Yes,
like a goatee.
It wasn't the long 3 to 5 inch hair, but it was hair. I couldn't see the black. I couldn't see what I was seeing up through here and above its eyes. That was skin to me.
But around the mouth was thick or wispy?
Like hair, kind of wispy. Yeah, not thick hair.
Okay.
I guess that's the right word. Yeah, wispy.
Yeah.
Well, it's even amazing we can even find terms to describe these things.
Yeah,
I use wispy on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my cotton candy factory.
I see. Okay. Yeah, you also think about they often say, don't they, hunters, oh, I would have shot it, but it looked human. And I wonder what they think when they see us. And if they're just as shocked or confused.
Yeah.
So we look similar to them because they must see one another and see similarities. I wonder if that's, a curious thing for them.
I've been asked a lot. One of the questions with the expression I seem to be asked at first was, did it have that mouth open like you caught me? And absolutely not. It's like it wasn't that surprised look. It just looked that intense, like not angry, but it's hard to explain. Like it was thinking. It was looking at me like same way I was looking at it. There was intelligence to it. That's my first impression, and I'll just use that word. But yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, and how many times I used to ride in that forest have I been close and they watch us fly through and wonder what we're doing or whatever. Not just there, but here I am in Pennsylvania. Yeah, if there was that 1 in 67 Patterson Gimlin film, probably as a kid thinking just one, not understanding the whole population thing. In Pennsylvania, and then when you start researching, you find out it's one of the top states with Ohio and top 10 or so. It's like, holy cow. But there's a lot of forest here.
Yeah. Actually, I need to go back. Jamie. Here's a pattern for you, Daniela. Dave Grove's encounter happened about an hour from where I had mine, and Bill Rigsby's encounter was an hour in another direction, Pennsylvania and Ohio, bordering states.
Yep, right across the northern part there. And then as you go east, it's super forested and, further over like towards the Poconos in the central part of PA. Man, there's parts of them woods I don't think have been touched. I know it's hard to think that in our day and time, but really people here in Pennsylvania and think of Pittsburgh or Philly. That's down in the far southern corners. The rest of the northern parts really forested.
There's got to be terrain that people just don't get to, can't get to.
Right.
You have to wonder if there's a bunch of these Bigfoots out there that have never encountered people at all and a completely different, might be a different story.
I can imagine too, especially out in western Pennsylvania or western United States, if anybody's ever visited, there's airplane crashes out there that they still can't find. So imagine some of that forest in that land, the size of the mountains, and what could possibly live there. We haven't touched every foot. We get that thought that we have. We might have looked down in there or something from a distance, but did anybody ever walk down there? I don't think so, because they would have found those planes if they did. There's a story about that, how many planes are out there that were lost and still haven't been found. And we have metal detecting gear and everything else today, right? It's just amazing.
It's just getting out there. How's that looking with the hair?
That's looking good. I mean, then what happens with the overall look is that hair will flow right into his body. I mean, I don't recall seeing the actual chin, like my chin. You can tell it's here. This thing it was hair and then it was hair. You know what I mean? And as a human, I'm judging that the chin would have been below its mouth. So, but I could not see that actual chin bend. Just the way the hair came up like that. And it's probably a little bit higher off to the sides, going up each side of its face, maybe a little closer to the mouth. Not much, but just a little bit up over the chin.
Sharpening.
Yeah. Is that what that is?
Son of a gun.
The worst part about sharpening a charcoal pencil is when you get it almost to the point you want and then it breaks off. It's the worst.
God dang it.
That's amazing when the shading starts happening.
He really brings it to life, and what's crazy is what Larry always taught me in drawing was if you don't capture it in the eyes, because he's drawn hundreds of animals. He's like, if you don't get the eyes, you're whoever's looking at it's not going to connect to it. And he somehow manages to get you to connect to the eyes on something that's just like black balls.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to explain because there had to be some whites or some different shade or something in there for me to be able to tell they were eyes, but I can't describe that. Yeah. Just big black balls,
Yeah.
I knew there were eyes in there.
But there's
and again, I go back to maybe
those.
the brow ridge shading it out. I don't know, deep sunk.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, along the side of the face, that's accurate.
Okay.
Maybe where your hand is. I'm sorry. Come back up into the cheek a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That part was kind of filled in, like a little pieces on the side.
Oh, under the cheekbone.
Yeah, I did
Oh,
not
here?
see all skin.
Yeah.
There.
Oh,
Yep.
there you go.
Not
right
all.
there.
Yeah, right about through there. Yep.
Was hair.
Yeah. Just was. Yeah.
How far down?
Right above the line I see there. Trying to look. Where's your? Yeah. Right. Okay. Now come down. Yeah. A little bit further up. Little bit further up.
Between the lip and the nostril.
Right through there. If you come down now at an angle, that's about how it kind of came in. Like, this part seemed like hairy, but it wasn't.
Okay,
right
this was all hair here or not?
Where are you at?
Right there.
Yep. There's looks ragged, like hair or cracked skin. I mean, like I said, it was black, really black, different looking around the eyes, up above on a little piece of the forehead, and down through here. But then the rest, you could tell it was hair, scraggly.
Okay,
Yep.
and so this hair in through here.
Yep, maybe light, a little lighter, but yeah, that's good. Wow.
Lighter is in thinner hair.
Thinner, yes.
Oh, gotcha. I think we decided, Larry, didn't we decide that at the end of, maybe July, we're going to have the audience all vote on their favorite portrait, and Daniela's going to get it tattooed on her.
Right on her forehead?
Yeah.
I think you might not have sent me the memo on that one.
Who said that?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And then people can decide where I get it.
Yes.
Tattooed.
Oh, that's not a good idea at all.
We should draw a name of the best audience member, and they can pick the spot.
That would be funny.
Actually, I wouldn't get any of these tattooed on me.
No.
A good shoulder piece.
It'd be interesting. It would be a talk piece, wouldn't it? If you had it done on your arm.
Larry, as an artist, does anybody ever ask you to design a tattoo for them?
Yeah. Okay, how's that hair there?
That for the face, it looks good. That looks really good, right? What you're doing right there.
Okay.
On both sides, it would probably be that. I mean, I'm not saying probably. It would be.
Okay.
Like you say, Mark, it's the eyes, isn't it? The eyes and the things that draw you in. It does make them look real.
Yep. It gets me every time.
I'm wondering up close, like someone sees one really up close. Let me get the cam one. When they see them up really close, what do they see in those eyes? That could be a big fear part. It's not just that they're close. It's just, I can't imagine what they're looking at. Right. I've heard of these stories where they're really close, within 5 feet. I can't imagine that. And if those people lived and tell the story, that tells me something about this species. It 70 to 90 feet is my estimate on this one. Just with grasses, there were no trees between us. That thing would have been on, just pure physical look of it would have been on me, in my opinion, before I could have ever got my act together and reached, if I felt threatened. But I honestly didn't even think about my gun or my camera and fender bag. And that's something, when people ask that question, I have no problem defending the person that said that, because it happened to me. You would think you're ready. Now, when you're out in the woods, here's a good story. While he's doing this, after I got into researching after this and was up in my buddy's area, we were walking that same hollow, same hillside. We got down a couple 100 yards. We crossed the woods, came back over. We were in the woods for a good hour. Went to stop to take get a water break. I was taking my backpack off. I had my camera in my hand because I'm out there looking now, right? So I'm ready, thinking I'm ready. And the hill kind of goes up this way in front of me, and out of the corner of my eye, something I could tell was tall and black. It stood up, and I'm like,
my heart started racing, and I'm like, here we go. And when I looked up and I, caught a look at it, it was a black bear. It had dropped down on all four legs then, but it was sitting there looking right at us. And I'm telling you, it was no more than 40 feet away. I mean, it was pretty close, but up a little bit on the hill looking down at us. And I couldn't get that thing in the viewfinder. I'm looking right at it, and I could not find it in the viewfinder. And finally I got it, and I was like, there it is. It's right there, but it's just amazing. I could see how people, same with the blurry pictures, or why somebody gets one and they know what they saw, but by the time they got that camera on it, they're seeing something in the woods, like no one else can see. They just want some proof that they saw it. It took me forever to find that bear, and that's a known animal. And we were a little scared because we found out 2 cubs come down beside us, and we're like, oh God. But she left us alone, and wasn't no attack or anything. And this is a known animal. I still couldn't find it in my viewfinder.
Yeah.
I keep that out for that.
Looking for the biggest animal out there, the elk. They spend a whole season hunting. They don't see one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I have to answer those questions in my mind with those answers too as a hunter. I know areas that have high sightings of black bear, but when you go hunting, you're lucky to see them. And I've never seen a dead black bear in the woods. That story. Why don't we find bones? I've never have. Not from natural death.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not found. There's people that have found 1 or 2, but we studied a deer once in that area. It was all pine forest at the bottom of the woods, and this doe was down by a creek, and what was left was a skeleton. And I mean, there was no meat, but maybe the bottom of its legs and its head. And the back leg was spun off. I found some cat tracks there, big cat tracks, and I thought, okay, well, we don't know what killed it, but we were going in every 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, we went in there, I couldn't find a bone. And I'm sure they got drug off. The creek might have come up, but I don't recall it raining, if I remember right. So we didn't have flooding then, but they were drug off, something, whatever, dissolved, and pine forests are high acidic. So it just goes, who knows? Those questions I keep asking myself, since I know they exist now, but where are they?
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be common sense answers, right? But
we do complicate it. We do complicate it, don't we? Well, we could be doing it. It could be a lot simpler than what we think it is. We're just trying to find so many answers and possibilities when really, it could just be very, very simple.
I know we have to relate it to something, and the thing that comes up a lot is the apes, right? But we keep comparing them to apes, but we can't find them using that comparison. So it just makes you wonder, whatever they are, they have to have high intelligence. I mean, looking at this thing, it was not some animal ready to attack just because I was there. It was watching my move, which was nothing. I mean, I froze.
Yeah.
And I had that. That's one thing I got to say. I don't know how I just felt that. That was my opinion, that this thing was checking me out. I was hoping it wasn't seeing me, but we're right in the open with each other. Wow.
It stood out deliberately, didn't it? It wanted you to see it.
Well, it fit through rocks, if that's what it was. And yeah, it got my attention. And then it stood up. I mean, it didn't have to do that. So I'll never know why.
I'm sorry, the head.
Yes.
Now, you said that wasn't solid hair?
The head was up a little higher than where it's colored in, is where the hair started. And then it kind of was shorter hair, but it was groomed. I won't say brushed back, because I know I mentioned that word to another artist once, and that's the only answer. I couldn't put every hair on its head. But they gave that look happened, and it wasn't quite brushed back, but it was groomed. It was laid back 3 to 5 inches, maybe closer to 3 on the head, but probably go up a little bit from where the brow, where you stop coloring in, and that's where the hair starts.
From here,
probably the width of the nose bridge up.
Oh.
And that was all skin, I could tell, because it wasn't the same as the hair. And the hair it started and it kind of went out back, like not like mine, but
so about an inch over the where he's got it colored in.
Yeah.
Inch up.
Thanks, son.
Did it have a pronounced brow ridge?
It never turned sideways, so I couldn't see that, but there was something there. There was absolutely something there, and I honestly now think that that's why the eyes look so black.
Yeah.
I think it was shaded in and sunk in.
Yeah.
I have no explanation for that. But those were so pronounced black. And I'm glad, I like to see when someone does these, to leave a little white in there just to show that their eyes, because I don't know how else to explain that blackness.
but yet know their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good.
Phil says, imagine that peeking through the window. Well, I'm just going to put this up.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
This is
You
my
don't have
favorite.
to. You can see it.
This is my.
Oh my. Yeah, speaking of that, we had an artist or an author get a hold of me and the other artist, and I'm trying to remember what's the name of that book.
Print available by Larry Batson.
Bigfoot Bedtime Stories. If anybody, he has to put the sketch that she did on the front cover, and it's a picture of this thing looking in a child's bedroom because they were fictional stories. Bigfoot Bedtime Story.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, yeah, that didn't look so scary, but yeah, that one that you just showed, that would have freaked me out.
I know.
And some of the other ones I see, they're looking in windows like, oh my God, could you imagine looking out the window and seeing that?
Terrifying, wouldn't it? Terrifying.
I couldn't imagine this. I mean, well, first of all, I don't know that I'd have seen this. I wouldn't have seen this thing at night. It was just that dark. And that makes me wonder too, at night, how many are standing there that we don't know unless you have a thermal camera.
Yeah.
But to run into one of these at night, totally different experience. I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Something that big and huge that you're not expecting to see, and it's there. What do you do?
Well,
I don't know if I want to see that.
Like I've always said, they share the forest during the day. They own it at night.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I won't go out at night by myself in the woods anymore. And I used to have no problem with that. And it's not because I don't fear them. It's because I fear them. It's because I don't know. I just know they're out there now.
And you don't know what they could do or anything really. You know, it's you would just be like you say, looking over your shoulder all the time.
I can relate my story. This thing didn't attack me or growl, throw it. I mean, it did throw rocks at the beginning, but again, an afterthought, if it wanted to hit me, it probably would have.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be, I'm sure that's not every encounter because I've heard enough encounters after the fact. So yeah, you don't know what they're going to do. And again, in what area? Like my theory, you get them in their home area or bedding area, they'd be a different animal. We are.
Yeah.
It's funny because like the same thing they teach us to do if you're hiking and you see like a mountain lion or something, throw a couple rocks.
Yeah.
Keep it away.
Thank you.
Yeah, it could be exactly that, couldn't it?
Just like, hey, here's a little deterrent.
Yeah. I think about Jimmy Barr's encounter. He was a kid playing with his brothers, and if they hadn't have heard this thing scream, they wouldn't have gone looking for it and saw it. So it's that must have heard the kids playing and made a choice to
laughing. Maybe they say like laughing and singing and stuff like that can attract them.
Yeah, could be. But like I say, if he hadn't made that noise, and he said if it hadn't made that noise, I wouldn't have had that encounter.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have gone looking and found it.
My only pseudo encounter is a sound encounter, but it was up in Vermont, and me and some friends were up in a cabin, family's cabin, sitting around the campfire playing music on our instruments and laughing and all that stuff. And at one point we just heard a big like a shuffle through the leaves because it was in the fall. And we all kind of stopped and listened back. And nobody really got scared, but we were all kind of like, what was that? And looking back, I'm like, when nobody addressed it and said like, well, that's obviously a whatever it was. But it very well could have been one of these.
How are we doing?
We're doing good. The hair's going to be a little longer, sticking up further, like up
this way.
And then as it come down here, I'm guessing but between the eyes and the nose, it's just where the hair seemed to melt into the shoulders. And again, we've all heard, you've heard a lot of them. You've done enough sketches. People are seeing these because that's one thing when I saw this that hit me really, shortly after the fact. People have been describing this stuff and we've been laughing at them, and because they're exactly what they're describing. There's no neck. The arms are long, the whole 9 yards. This is exactly what my take was. And I didn't have that in my back pocket before. to know what Sasquatch. I never studied their bodies, didn't care for the subject. Yeah, that's about as low as the hair is going to come. Now, underneath of that would have been just shaded in. Yeah, like it was skin. It was just like under the eyes and under the nose. And I will say, since we have more hair on it, the top of the head isn't as round. So you might even come up to a little bit more of a point, but not a point.
Okay.
It just wasn't rounded. Like
a little bit of height.
Little higher in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I'm seeing it with the hair on it, it did. Because again, like I was saying earlier, my first impression was this thing was kind of leaning forward. Because I was seeing the head just seemed something like I was looking at this part of it in its face, and the nose down and the arms long. But it never stood up when it stepped backwards, and it was standing up from what I could tell. It wasn't hunched over. Again, I wish it would have walked side or turned around. I would have loved to have seen the thickness of one of these. Or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that could have completely changed your, mood then if you just saw. I mean, people describe them could be 3, 4, 5 foot across. Some of these descriptions.
Oh, the shoulders were an easy 36 inches. I mean, I don't know if that's 3 to 4. It was so gigantically muscular across the shoulders. It didn't come in a V. It wasn't like that weight body, but it was big. Like Patterson Gimlin film. When I look at that, it was a lot of meat under that hair, but it didn't look like it was out of shape.
And this another interesting thing, isn't it? The rounded heads or the conical, what's going on there? There's this different, is it an age thing? Is it something that gets developed? Could it have been a juvenile or of some sort?
I'm not sure. Is it the thickness of the back of the neck built in?
The muscle as well.
Who knows? Yeah, or is it just the way the hair's shaped? We need a body, right? But I'd hate to see that happen. Because I'm convinced they're here. I mean, when you see what you see and you have experience in the woods, and I'm no expert. I'm not a woods expert. I'm not claiming to be, but as a hunter and stuff, and I've seen plenty of bears in the woods, and I can picture one at a distance running, how someone might confuse it. But when you're standing there staring at it, it's not. There's just no. Well. Now the shoulders, I remember, they weren't straight across wide. They came down like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
all right, down more.
Yeah, but they just came down. They were massive. And one thing, I know you're not going to draw this, but if you ever hear of another witness, I'd be curious to know, and I've put this out there before, this thing bent its right arm. As soon as I got my eyes made contact with it, and it froze. And its arm was across about its waist, somewhere around its waist, I would estimate. And what looked really bizarre to me was the bottom part where the elbow was. The bottom part to me looked longer. And I've actually heard when you invited me on, I listened to that show, found another show, and someone described it backwards. Yes. Someone described it the other way around. But what I saw was the bottom part where you just pointed out seemed longer than the upper part. But, I have to think the upper part was along its side and it was muscular. I'm talking big. So it could have just made it look that way to me. But it just seemed like the bottom part was longer.
I can put you in touch with someone, Ernie, who was on. This thing gave him hand signals. It was pointing at him, pointing at itself, pointing at him. And it was almost trying to communicate something. So I'll put you in touch with Ernie, and he got a look. He'll have got a look at those arms, I'm sure.
I wonder, because it bent its arm, and I always often wonder what it was meaning or what it was doing, and its fingers were moving, but I wasn't paying attention to that. I was now focused on its face.
Yeah, this thing was communicating with him, pointing at him, pointing at itself. It's fascinating. I'll send you the account, the show as well that we did with him.
Yeah, Larry and I interviewed a guy that he said that the Sasquatch, I can't remember, Larry, maybe you remember better than I do, but I feel like it did some gesture because he was a hunter, and when he was tracking some deer, and he was falling into pace with the deer. When he turned the corner, he was masking his own footsteps with deer that were rushing through, and when he turned the corner, he saw one of these things, and it gave him some gesture that
it's the same one because it's Ernie.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Ernie. Yeah.
Yeah, he came up upon it, and then when he said he thought it was a bear at first, and then it turned round, and he
And
was
then
like,
he looked, and he
yeah,
was flanked in that one too, right? Yeah.
yeah, there was two of them, and
Yeah.
another one came over, and they were communicating with one another, pointing, "I'll go that way, you go that way," kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. They were all hunting the deer at the end of the day. That's what they were all doing. They were just
They were
focused on
competitors.
yeah. How's that looking?
It's looking good. The only thing is still the top. And I hate to make this correction now, but I'm really above the eyes. There was more forehead before the hair started. Not a lot more, but enough to see that there was skin and not hair or something different. Wasn't just
brow?
that thin line. Yeah, it was. I'd say like where my fingers are. There was enough space here that I could tell that wasn't hair.
Oh, gotcha.
And then
So
it kind
about
of
a
went up, and
finger
that it just went all into
thickness.
hair there. And the top is a little bit more pointed still. And that would probably fill
Was
out
it more
the
of a
thickness.
drastic point, Dave?
No, it was more of a
Rounded?
yeah, but it wasn't round. It was football shape, but not. I don't need that or American football shape, but I'm not.
Like a rugby ball.
Yeah, not the point that we have in our football, but it was more rounded. It wasn't like a circle look to it. Let me think.
I'm trying to think like a surfboardy.
Yeah, there you go. Surfboard look. That right there.
Oh yeah, like that. More like
that kind of shape. The one on the I can say right or left. It's probably backwards too. The one with the teeth.
Yeah.
That's about the shape of the head.
Yeah,
the top
that's
of it.
on Kerry saw.
But adding that space up there would help too, because there was more hair up here, so that's going to add that hair there. That's good.
Cool. And a wider brow line.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what that was through here. I know they say they have brow ridges, but I wish it would have turned sideways and I'd have seen. I just knew that those eyes were deep and dark, and my thought was something was there. You know.
Yeah.
This was 70 again, 30 long paces. So 70 to 90 feet and broad daylight. You can see a lot, but
Larry, can you kick your camera up about an inch or two? It's hard to see the top.
Head.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
There you go. And then a little bit longer hair out, not down, but outward, like, and then down along where the like out here where my hands are, and then flowing into the shoulders. Like there wasn't that gap right here. It just flowed right in. Right, that's when the hair started getting longer, right around where its ears or whatever might be, its eyes right there.
Oh, gotcha.
Kind of just haired right into its shoulders and the face, just kind of went into its chest. Like it just was all hair. Again, I wish it would have turned sideways. I would have got to see the chin and the.
How's that?
Better, a little bit thicker, longer hair. I mean, right through there.
Oh, you mean from like the temples down to the
yes, it
shoulders?
Kind of flowed down. It could have been the shoulders, but my look at it, it just looked like the hair was getting thicker and longer.
Is that getting it now?
Yes, that's good right there. That looks good.
That's getting it. That's interesting. Now you mentioned the arm movement. I mean, that could have been some sort of signal or some sort of communication. Maybe it didn't. I don't know.
I didn't see it do. I remember because I was looking in its right hand, and as soon as I did, it instantly moved that right hand and put it across its waist, sort of like across, and then it just stopped and it froze. And we just, like I said, we stared. It was really looking at me with intense eyes, but I don't know what it was doing with that hand. I didn't see anything in it, but the palm was facing it, not me. I could see the outside of the hand, and the outside was all hair. If people wanted to know that, but I couldn't tell what the palm was. Didn't see anything in it. It wasn't gripping anything. Didn't appear.
What do you think?
Looks good. Up on top where the pointed head is, down to the sides a little bit, a little longer hair flowing out. But the way you brought that into its shoulders is perfect. It just seemed like its eyes melted right into the side. You know what I mean? Like, just a beast. But beautiful. I know people laugh at this, but it's my honest one-word opinion. after the fact, is a beautiful creature. This thing wasn't all ugly, scary looking. In the muddy day that we had, this thing was groomed, looking from that distance. And if it wasn't for something that wasn't supposed to be there that I didn't know and have fear of the unknown, it was a beautiful creature. That one side looks really good. The thicker side looks good. That one, yep.
Okay, what about
duplicate that, and then it'll be about the same. Yep, it was pretty symmetrical.
This is one of my favorite ones here.
Yeah.
You know, and I kind of think, I'm not going to say beautiful, but there's a kind of, for me, like a kind, intelligent look in its eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just
majesty.
It's not something we're used to seeing, so that we're afraid of that. But why? If it's not, I was more afraid of what was coming up behind me. I mean, I was so locked onto this thing, my mind was on it. And when you snap out of that, it really concerns you what you're allowing to sneak up behind you, or am I getting jumped here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or, you know, then when you take off, this thing's in the woods. I don't know where it's at. It's running along. All that fear is what scared me. That creature there did not, except for not knowing what it was. I don't even know that was fear then, but.
And the mass, you know, you must have at some point thought that, just what could that thing do at that size, you know?
Dave, that's the beard?
Yeah, no, the face actually, where the hair is down here, it went right into its chest. Like it all turned into hair. I'm not saying the hair was that long. It just was all hair.
Yeah.
And it was so black that it blended in. I couldn't see the chin line here.
Silhouette wise, you're just seeing a shape. Yeah.
It just was like just drawing a chest in the background, and the hair. The hair, I would say, on the chin was probably. I mean, I could tell where the hair was, but you couldn't, see the outline of the chin.
Yeah.
It was probably again it's 3 inches. I say 3 inches because the hair on its body seemed longer, and I thought that was 5 inches. So 3 inches around the face, kind of on the bottom, and up through here, and then 5 everywhere. It just got hairier.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think?
That looks really good. Now, color that darken, it's hard to do because then you can't see it, but imagine the skin a little darker. And it wasn't like a white-black contrast, but it was darker, but enough to know that you could see that detail that you just put in there. It was pretty, yeah. You got them shoulders right on. That how it blended in from its head.
Blues and G Music says, how tall was it? You thought about 7 foot, maybe?
I said 7.5 feet, and the only reason I guessed that was because of and I wasn't looking at size then. I mean, height, but that question always comes up. And the only thing I had was it had there was mountain grasses that it was standing in right along the edge of the forest, and those were anywhere from 1 to 2 feet, depending on where what part. And that came up to below its knees, probably halfway up. I couldn't tell how long the bottom of its legs were underneath that, but the shins down were covered.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing 7. It was just I got to say that when it's not leaning against a tree or something for you to judge, it's really difficult because the width throws you off.
Yeah.
These things, the strength across I can't imagine the musculature in there. So my guess was 7.5 feet. It was definitely, and best guess would be between 7 and 8, somewhere in there.
Tall enough.
I'm going to tweak it.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's going to do his little thing now. And there was another question, did I see? It was friend of yours, Kevin Morrison.
Kevin Morrison, yeah.
Dave's the real deal. He's great to travel with, 2016.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kevin's, man, I wish they'd open Canada up so we could get him back down here and camp in the Alleghenies again and do some things. Kevin's a good guy. Met him out in Oregon, of all places.
All right.
No, actually, we met in California on the way to Oregon, I think. Yeah. And then we traveled together.
Bigfoot connection. Did you have a Bigfoot connection?
A Bigfoot connection?
Yeah. Do you know him through Bigfoot?
Oh, yes. That's how I know him. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't into this stuff until after the encounter, and 2 years after when it went public, I got into a lot of things, and man, it just to go from 0 to 100 in 1 second is amazing. I mean, you should see my living room is just all Bigfoot books, you know, all the collector stuff, all the Patterson's books, all 8 editions of. I mean, the stuff you do when this happens, you go on to search for all the good information, right? The old stuff.
Yeah.
A 7-foot, 8-foot tall one out in the garage, made, you know, carved out of wood. And who would have thought? I look back in pre-2010, and here I am talking to you about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Changes your life, and you hear that from everybody, and there's no other way to describe it.
No,
Wow.
like I say, everybody says that, and it's just amazing, isn't it? This thing that's going on, and yet we don't know what it is, and nobody's helping us, you know, find answers. And it's just the biggest mystery I've ever been involved in, you know.
And how do you get the answers if you can't spend time with them? I know there are people that say they do, but there's not enough of it or whatever. There's not enough documented whatever. I'm not a scientist, and I don't care about the scientific, you know, evidence. Because I know what I saw, but
yeah,
it would be nice to have some, so we would have some answers. My only fear would be, what would the public do then? You know, you're going to get crazy hunters out there. We're looking for that trophy, going to get themselves hurt or hurt a species of creatures that are leaving us alone.
I think
for the most part.
I think people have been trying that anyway, haven't they? I mean, I'm not sure.
Some people that they want a body and it's purely for science. I can almost understand that, but I still can't fully grasp that. I know science needs one, or they can't even name it. You know, we just call them Sasquatch or whatever we call them right now. But
still, even with a body, you can't study the behavior. You know, you need to watch these things to know what these things are about. You
That's
know,
the sweet part. If they would let us study them, you know, trust somebody enough to just let them hang out. Wouldn't that be cool? I could imagine. They'd probably drag us through the ringer, though.
They're doing it anyway, aren't they? I mean, it's one of these subjects, isn't it, where there's so much argument and negativity and you know, controversy. It's a hard one to keep it, you know, in one place.
It's a shame too. I mean, I don't mean it negatively, but I was so open-minded and so into it, and just meeting everybody and just enjoying the camaraderie of Sasquatch people and the groups that I started realizing were out there, and then you start seeing the other side of it, and that chased me away. I let it chase me away, but I kind of backed away from a lot of that. I don't, you know, I did several podcasts back in the day, and then I just stopped because it became it became about the people, not about that creature that he just drew.
Yeah.
And that's not why I'm talking about it. I could care less about me. It's that thing existed in Pennsylvania in June.
Yeah, you're honoring it.
Yeah. And it needs to be, they need to be talked about. I do get why people don't talk about it. And we were very lucky a couple years ago. A lady out of Ohio, I'll mention her name, Amy Boo. Her and I was actually asked by a guy that went to this conference for years. It was the Outdoor Sport Expo. That was just all these professional hunters come in, professional anglers, and they'd never done Bigfoot. So he talked to the guy that ran it, and he said, "Yeah, that's getting popular now. Do you know anybody?" So he contacted me and asked me if I want to come out and set a booth and stuff up. But I can only talk about my story and my opinions, right? I can't carry somebody for a weekend. So I knew Amy would be a great candidate, and her and I did this, and we had some hunters tell us there was this one guy, going back to how people hold on to these stories. He was older than I was. He literally cried on my shoulder. His wife was there with him and was just saying, "It's okay. You can finally I mean, this guy wasn't making, I mean, he held that in for 30, 40 years and was made fun of when he did talk about it.
That's
unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
It is sad. This guy had something to say, and when we actually got invited on this Pittsburgh CBS morning show, because we were Bigfooters coming to this sports show, right? So he was watching it on TV and saw us, and he heard my story, and he had to come talk because he trusted us when he saw us. And it was like, I was so thankful that he did, because, you know, to hold that in that long, I couldn't go longer than 2 years. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we you know, where we're at with this is, or for me, it's, you know, Bigfoot's untouchable at the moment. You know, it's so far out of our reach. We've really got to focus on the people that are seeing these things and the care and support that they need. You know, because that's the one thing that we can do. because trying to find this creature is pretty hard.
Yeah.
And, we forget about the people. We want to hear the encounters, but people don't realize there's a lot of emotion at the end of these things and people living with this stuff. Some people having a terrible time with it. I mean, it's not just an experience and life goes on. It alters people's lives. And
that's a great thing that you do there, because that is so needed. I mean, there's some people here doing that I've heard of, and wow, that's like, that could change somebody's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it will. It definitely does.
Yeah.
That release of information and the burden that they're carrying.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just 2 years. And then when it came out of me, when Steve picked on me there, that I mentioned, that it was just a draining experience for it to come out and then not hear one person laughing behind me. Was, whether they did or not, it was too late and I didn't care because it was coming out now.
Yeah.
But it was just overwhelming. It was like, oh my God, I just told the public this. You know, now I'm a Bigfoot person, I guess. That's what happens. But that was...
There he is.
Give me 1 second. I'll get this.
It's amazing watching that come to life.
It's kind of dark down there. And they're amongst it, Well, we've tweaked it, so.
What are you sipping on there, Larry?
Well, we're drinking out of the Yeti, North America's greatest drinking device. Keep that beverage cold for weeks and weeks and weeks. Tonight, hosting lemonade.
Ooh, lemonade.
Let me just give me 1 second.
When life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah.
I guess if you got the equipment to make lemons into lemonade.
Well, if you have some feet,
stop them.
Big toes.
Yeah, big toes,
Bigfoot.
Just don't tell me that you made it that way.
But they're clean. Come on, just took a bath.
I'd still barf.
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter. It would not be good.
Same with mine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Right. So let me get this image that Larry's done. And after a little tweaking.
Ooh.
How's that, Dave?
That's close. That's really close. There's probably more hair down on the side of the chins, but that's very close. Some big round black eyes with eyeballs inside of them. It really nails it.
Am I the closest of all the artists?
I will say the two that have done it, you're both close. It's so hard to put the spot on. It really is. But I have to think the first impression when I look at that takes me back to that encounter. So you're very, very close.
Oh, good.
That's sweet.
What areas would you say? Because Larry loves to go back and tweak these things.
Under the nose, there was more of a distinct line. Like I knew there was, Yeah. And a little darker just under the nose. More. I don't even know if it was hair or just a shade, but I know it was darker there. I didn't see almost like a mustache, but not thick hair. And that's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's terrifying in a way, to think these things are out there.
But they're beautiful. I don't know. I still think
It's-
about mine now. It wasn't beautiful then, but
There's some unusual looking ones,
yeah.
Different.
Now, if I'd have seen teeth, I don't know what that would have done to me. Because who knows if there's. Wow.
It's they're all different. All the ones Larry does, they all look slightly different in some way or another.
You get them from all over the country, right?
That's it, yeah, as well. So
you wonder what the difference is, yeah.
Well,
yeah,
now
maybe seeing teeth may have been more of aggressive, anyways. From what I've learned from Larry is not that they're primates, but teeth are always a sign of.
Mm-hmm.
fear as well, because of fear rather than trying to be aggressive. You know, dogs do it, don't they? They'll show the teeth because they're frightened most of the time rather than
the lip curl and the whole 9 yards. And I've used that word before, thinking of aggressiveness when I had this encounter. There was no lip curl or any of that like aggressive things you'll see from different animals. It wasn't that aggression look. It was that freeze and just study. It's there.
Well, Larry, you've done it again.
Yeah, bravo, Larry.
Oh,
well done.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my mother, my father, and all my brothers and sisters, and all my son Mark there. And they made it all possible tonight for me to be able to win this and
I
do
forgot
this.
the trophy.
I wouldn't have any room for it anyway. So.
Oh, good.
There you go. He's got no room.
That's awesome.
I accept full credit for what he just did over the last 2 hours.
Is that how long it's been?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
2 hours, 10 minutes. So it's been a long one, but it's been an interesting, great one to go over your encounter and the possibilities of what was going on. I mean, you know, it's great discussion.
Yeah, and we'll never know. I'll never know the answers to that. I could think all day long, and all for 12 years. I'm just my guess.
Yeah, that's all we can do, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's all we can do.
Yeah,
well,
it is.
Yeah. Oh, you're practicing your Irish. Sorry, Mark. He's trying to pull off an English accent. It's not quite getting there yet. But 10 out of 10 for trying. Dave, I want to thank you again for coming on. And
yes.
Oh, thank you guys so much. And girls, thanks a lot, Daniela, for having me on, and Larry and Mark. It was a pleasure meeting you. Great job.
Great to meet you.
This is a great show. This is. I think you're like one of the only ones that do this, right?
Yep.
That do live drawings on. It's pretty intense.
They're all chicken.
That's it.
It's hard to do.
You both
I can't imagine
put it
drawing
together.
live.
It's hard to describe until it's there, and then you can see that.
You're both being put in the hot seat. And it's a lot of pressure, but you both pulled it off as usual. Larry always pulls it off, but it's a great experience, I think, for people to go through, to have these things drawn, and to see what they look like on paper. So once again, thanks, Dave. Thank you, Larry.
Cool. Oh, you're welcome, and thank you to my mother, my father, and
thanks to all of those, and Elizabeth the baboon. Mark, thanks for popping on.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you back on here again. Guys, we'll see you all tomorrow night on the Researchers Report at I think it's a Researchers Report, 7 p.m. Central. Thanks for being here, everyone, and interacting and all that. You're great. We'll see you all soon. Good night.